been a government shutdown where the president has said, no, we're not going to feed hungry people who rely on this funding.
This fault is squarely on the shoulders of the Democrats, and they're the ones causing you the pain, and don't ever let them forget it.
The U.S. government shutdown now entering a second month, on track to be the longest shutdown ever. The blame game goes on. But have we reached a pressure point this coming week? Images of people nationwide lining up for free food. Notices of soaring Obamacare premiums hitting your mailboxes. Is this the week the shutdown becomes real for President Donald Trump? If so, how does it end? And maybe Adelita Grijalva gets sworn in. We'll see. Our politics panel steps in now. Kris, an attorney and Democratic political consultant, and Republican consultant, Barrett Marson of Marson Media. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thanks for having us.
Same timestamp as in the first segment. We await any ruling on the food stamp issue from my federal judge in Boston. So what is most likely right now to bring the shutdown to an end? Is it long lines of hungry Americans, the Obamacare premium issues, Donald Trump posting on social media in the middle of the night that he wants to end the filibuster? What is it? What's it going to be?
You know, I think that with the 42 million Americans that are set to miss their SNAP benefits this week, in addition to the sticker shock that's going to come with the ACA marketplace, I think that, that will hopefully get folks moving in the right direction. However, it seems that both sides are kind of dug in where they stand. I know that there's a bipartisan group of folks that are trying to work on something, but really I think the pressure is going to have to come from the American people.
And it seems like this has all been in Donald Trump's hands. Mike Johnson's been kind of a passenger, it seems. But does this hit members, Republican members?
Well, it eventually will. I mean, again, the long lines that we may see this weekend, even if if a judge allows temporary funding, it's literally temporary funding. Mm-hmm. The pain is going to hit. And I think it's going to hit members, both Republicans and Democrats. Mm-hmm. It may be a pressure point for Democrats to say, all right, let's open up the government and negotiate some of these policy things later.
Or as some have said, is it Tuesday's elections? New York City mayor, Virginia governor, New Jersey governor. Is that a tipping point perhaps, or just something that's just going to happen?
I think that's probably just going to happen for a little while, right? Excuse me. I think that there's some excitement about that, but when it comes down to it, I think most Americans are really looking at what is going to happen with our SNAP benefits. A lot of folks are now losing their jobs through a series of layoffs and really scared about what's going to be there to help them now that those job losses are happening. So I think that, the elections are important, but folks are really focused on what's happening to them and their communities right now.
This has mostly been a Washington, D.C. shutdown. This really hasn't impacted places like Arizona.
No, federal workers.
My caveat is unless you work for the federal government. But we haven't really seen much of an impact here in Arizona. If SNAP benefits are ended, as we expect, and the Obamacare premiums rise, that will then start to actually impact real people outside the Beltway.
I want to go back to the filibuster. Donald Trump tweeted about it or posted about it in the middle of the night. That brings groans from Arizona Democrats who, there it is, who had to live with former Senator Kyrsten Sinema opposing ending the filibuster. What are we thinking today about the filibuster?
I mean, listen, I was a proponent of ending the filibuster when Democrats wanted to do it. If the Republicans do it, it's another example of hypocrisy, but that means absolutely nothing to folks. I think folks will see that if they can end the shutdown, right, and folks get their benefits back, I don't think anybody cares about the filibuster.
Process, yeah, I don't know the process people will understand or care. Mm-hmm. They do want to see people start getting paid again, air traffic controllers back on the job and getting paid, military members and SNAP benefits, all those things that are going to create pain points over the next week or two. Mm-hmm. They do want to see that. And I will say, this is whether the filibuster ends for a carve out on budgets or whatever. I mean, this is what Republicans and people like Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin stood up for, a couple of years ago. I mean, otherwise, the Senate would, they have 53 members, easily run roughshod over Democrats on a variety of issues. And so I think it was important for Sinema, Manchin, and others to stand up. I mean, Republicans don't want to get rid of the filibuster.
Well,
And
maybe now they do.
well,
We'll
but
find out in
no,
a few days.
but in his first term, Trump called for the end of the filibuster as well. That is an impediment to some of the things that he wants to do, for sure.
Okay, well,
He's also called for the end of blue slips on U.S. attorneys and things like that. But the Senate is holding firm so far.
we shall see. On to topic 2. The Arizona Agenda ran a piece this week contrasting the re-election campaigns of Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs and her fellow Democrat Attorney General Kris Mayes. Mayes is portrayed as the fighter against Donald Trump. Hobbs is trying to avoid conflict, even though she's holding an Arizona first rally this weekend. And we have heard forceful comments from Katie Hobbs during this snap cutoff. Barrett, what do you make of the framing? Does it reflect different roles, different personalities?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Katie Hobbs is probably going to have a blue MAGA hat made, make Arizona great again. I mean, that seems to be, she's like parodying Donald Trump here. But look, Donald Trump won the state 2 out of 3 times. 2 out of 3 times. And he, expanded the lead, if you will, in 2024. He crossed the 50% threshold. This is a Republican state, despite, several elections where we have Katie Hobbs, Ruben Gallego, Mark Kelly, because we had incredibly poor, and that's the best word I could use, poor Republican candidates. She understands we're a Republican state, and you cannot be so anti-Republican and then win moderate Republicans, independents, and even moderate Democrats.
And I'll bring up my favorite subject, the registration disadvantage
Absolutely.
that Democrats have right now is just quite stunning and quite a hill for Kris Mayes, Katie Hobbs, and other statewide candidates.
And expanding.
Right.
The Republicans are expanding their registration advantage, and Democrats are losing real numbers, even though the state's gaining population.
So what about that? Again, let's go back to the framing. Is there a right way to take on Donald Trump?
I think that the framing right now, or the 2 different approaches to their campaigns, are indicative of the way that they both kind of served in their offices, right? I think Kris Mayes from the jump has been out there filing lawsuits against the Trump administration repeatedly. And so, she has the bona fides to say that she is a fighter of Trump. And I think Katie Hobbs has tried to lay low a little bit and stay under the radar and avoid some of Trump's ire that has been directed at other states, right? Again, what Barrett said, she understands who her base needs to be as well, and it needs to be broad-reaching. It needs to be Democrats, it needs to be Republicans, it needs to be independents, and she also needs to raise money from those folks. It's costly to run for governor here, and so I think she's banking on, a campaign that will be open to all of those groups of folks to support her campaign and certainly fund it.
And just getting back to the registration numbers, when you see the surge in independents, because they're pretty close to number 1 right now, the largest piece of the pie among registration, who do you think they are?
They're just people who don't want to become part of the Democratic Party or, sort of a pox on everyone's houses, but they are still a bit more conservative leaning. Just because they're independent doesn't mean they don't have an ideology and that they aren't voting generally Republican, but at least, sort of the old school Republican. And I think that's sort of, Katie Hobbs understands, if I can just appeal to some Republicans or Republican-leaning independents, then I can replicate 2022.
So is Kris Mayes maybe taking this too far? She's at 30 lawsuits against the Trump administration, roughly. Is she going too far in that direction?
No, I don't think so, right? I think that, the dynamics of running for governor and the dynamics for running for AG are completely different, right? Now, I will say that Kris Mayes won her last election by like the teeniest, tiniest margin.
280 votes.
Right.
And that's my issue. Is she angering 141 people, essentially? flipping, right? I mean, she won by 20.
Right.
And to be the leader of the resistance here in Arizona, I don't think serves her well at election time.
I don't know that it is a disservice, however.
God ended there. Barrett Marson, Kris Love, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.